once again commercializes her two children, who I think are increasingly troubled when you look at what she's putting out there. And even Tom Sykes of The Royalist is saying there's hypocrisy at the heart of Meghan's Easter post of her kids, because the Sussex children are now central to a public image machine that sits awkwardly.
Easter Sunday dropped two totally different royal vibes, and the contrast says a lot about where the Sussex side and the Wales crew really stand right now. Spring 2026 in Windsor, William and Catherine step out at St. George's Chapel with George, Charlotte, and Louis, all moving like a tight unit, calm and in control. It's not just a walk, it's a message, clear and loud. 5 figures, side by side, sharp outfits, steady energy, no chaos in sight. The kids aren't little anymore. They carry themselves like they get the moment, like they know exactly what's expected, without cracking under pressure. By the next morning, every major British front page is locked in on that single image. The Sunday, the Daily Express, the Daily Mirror, the Daily Telegraph, the Times, they all ran with it. No hesitation. Every single paper picked the exact same shot. No debate, no mix, just one clear image of the monarchy's future standing together, present, steady, and looking locked in. Meanwhile, over in Montecito, a completely different kind of picture was being painted, and it didn't go unnoticed. Meghan dropped Easter posts on Instagram, but the vibe was totally different. You see the back of Lily's head, a soft toy, a chicken, some eggs, and then later a skiing clip of Archie with Harry on the slopes. It's calm, it's controlled, but it's also very curated. And let's be real, none of this contrast happened by accident on either side.
Bring in the faceless children! Here they go again.
What really matters is the message behind the images. The Windsor photos scream continuity, duty, and that specific kind of warmth you get from a family that shows up in public without turning every moment into something to cash in on. The kids at Windsor aren't hidden away. They're part of a visible tradition, learning step by step what it means to represent something bigger than themselves, just like their parents and grandparents did before them. There's structure to it, there's purpose behind it, and it shows in every frame. The way those children walk toward the chapel, it's not random, it's part of a system that's been built over generations. That small moment, the king placing his hand on Louis's shoulder, carries real weight, and it says a lot without needing words. Now compare that to what was coming out of Montecito, because the message there hits completely different. Tom Sykes from The Royalist broke it down perfectly, pointing to those partial angles, those quick flashes, those carefully chosen shots. And here's the key point. They don't actually protect the children's privacy the way people think. Instead, they do something else entirely. They give just enough of a glimpse to hook attention, while holding back enough to keep people curious, almost waiting for more to drop.
Like figure, held back from the rest of the world, trapped in the castle. Oh, and she did remember at the end that she could show the least favorite child too.
It's not random. It's a strategy, and a pretty calculated one at that. In media terms, this is called a tease. It's all about creating that curiosity gap. Show a little, hide a little, and keep the audience leaning forward, wanting more but never quite getting it. That's a classic move in commercial content creation. It's not something you usually see from parents whose main goal is simply keeping their kids out of the spotlight. This approach comes from people who understand exactly how attention works and how to use it. And when you line that up against Harry's very public stance on social media and children, the contrast gets sharp, fast. He's been one of the loudest voices warning that platforms like Instagram can seriously harm young people, that the digital world can have real consequences for kids' well-being. And that's where things start to feel a bit uneasy, because the message and the method don't quite match up. He's called it a seriously under-addressed public health issue.
Harry has made himself one of the most vocal, high-profile critics of the digital economy's effects on children, while Meghan is using one of the world's biggest social platforms to circulate images of their own children to millions. Their defenders argue there is a difference between sharing controlled family content and exposing children to uncontrolled online exploitation. Their critics will say that distinction is wearing thin. Every new post featuring Archie or Lilibet.
He's taken that message to global summits, pushed it in speeches, and made it a core part of his post-royal identity. This isn't a side topic for him. It's central to how he presents himself to the world. But at the exact same time, his wife is posting carefully teased, partial images of their children to one of the biggest social media platforms out there, reaching millions of followers. And that's where the tension really kicks in. Supporters will say there's a clear difference between controlled family sharing and the kind of uncontrolled exposure Harry warns about. They'll argue that posting Easter moments isn't the same as the algorithm-driven harm he talks about, that parents have always shared pieces of their kids' lives with their communities. And sure, on the surface, that sounds reasonable. Those arguments do hold up, if you look at them in isolation. But once you zoom out and look at the full picture, especially the commercial angle, things start to shift fast. Because this isn't just a private account with a small circle of friends and family watching along. Meghan's Instagram operates on a completely different level. It's part of a wider content strategy, tied to visibility, branding, and reach. And that changes how every post is seen, whether people want to admit it or not. It's not just a personal page, it's a full-on public-facing brand channel with millions watching. It's used to promote lifestyle products, push visibility, and keep the entire Sussex operation in motion. So when Archie and Lily show up there, it's not just casual family sharing anymore. It takes on a different meaning. Their presence starts to look less like private moments and more like part of a wider commercial picture.
Desperate and deeply hypocritical, continuously weaponizing Archie and Lilibet against the royals and using them as brand identity is astonishing, given that Harry has so publicly expressed his own resentment at being drawn into a public-facing brand narrative for the royals without his own consent.
Those teased, partial glimpses, they don't read like protective instincts. They come off as strategy, carefully planned and timed. And then the skiing video drops, adding another layer to everything. You see Harry and Archie on the slopes, framed as a relaxed father-son holiday moment, simple and wholesome on the surface. But at the same time, another image starts circulating. Harry is seen skiing with Eugenie, smiling, relaxed, and noticeably not in any group shot that includes Meghan. That detail didn't go unnoticed, and it raised eyebrows fast. Now people are asking questions, and they're not small ones. Was Meghan even on that ski trip? Or is the family holiday video more of a curated snapshot than a full, straightforward record of what actually happened? Observers have been circling this for a while now, and there's still no clear answer. And then there's another detail that adds to the confusion. The same person who reportedly struggled with a toboggan moment at the Invictus Games is now appearing in polished skiing content. That shift alone has people looking twice and wondering what's really going on behind the scenes. The timing, the context, and that separate photo of Harry with his cousin, it all starts to feel a bit off when you line it up. This doesn't land like a simple, warm family Easter being casually shared. It feels layered, a bit too curated, and people are noticing the gaps. Now shift the focus to Beatrice and Eugenie, because what went down at Easter, and more importantly, who showed up and who didn't, speaks volumes. This isn't just about attendance. It's part of a bigger story unfolding between Charles and William, two very different visions for where the institution is heading. And the missing names? They stand out immediately. Andrew wasn't there. Sarah Ferguson wasn't there. Beatrice and Eugenie, both absent. Their husbands, their children, also missing. The entire York side, gone from the most visible royal gathering of the Easter period. This hits even harder when you remember that just a year ago, Charles was seen warmly with them at Ascot, looking every bit like a close, connected family unit. That kind of visible bond doesn't just disappear without people asking why. The official line says Beatrice and Eugenie could have attended, but chose not to, but that phrasing raised eyebrows fast. As Tom Sykes pointed out, there's something sharp in how that's worded, and it leaves plenty of room for interpretation.
The children grow up and they embrace these wonderful, lovely roles that they have that are very unique and interesting, and this service and duty to the country, which is so wonderful and lovely to see. It's so cool that we see royals sort of grow up and just embrace their destiny in so many amazing ways. We have a lot of royals who have reached the age of maturity recently. So that's just, as a royal watcher, has been.
It mirrors that same careful choreography we saw when Andrew stepped back, something first framed as voluntary, as if it was all calmly agreed with the king, before it turned into something far more permanent. That kind of wording isn't sluchino, and people who follow this closely know it. So when the palace says an absence is a choice, it raises a real question. Whose choice are we actually talking about, and what kind of pressure might be sitting behind it? That wording leaves space, and not the comfortable kind. And according to multiple accounts, one name keeps coming up at the center of it all. William. His stance has been consistent and unmistakable. He will not attend royal events where members of the York family are present, full stop. And look at Easter. William shows up with his family alongside the king and queen, and the Yorks are nowhere in sight. That's not random, and it's not a scheduling clash. That's the reality of William's influence over who is visibly in and who is out when it comes to the public face of the monarchy. It's controlled, it's deliberate, and it sends a clear signal about direction and boundaries. But then things get complicated, fast. Because in that same week, The Sun reports that King Charles is planning to invite Beatrice and Eugenie to Royal Ascot. And this isn't some low-key gathering. Ascot is one of the most high-profile, heavily choreographed events in the royal calendar. So now you've got a situation that doesn't line up cleanly. They're out at Easter but potentially back in for Ascot? That contrast is loud and people are picking up on it. You can't really argue their Easter absence was purely their own choice if, at the same time, the king is ready to place them front and center at another major public event. Either they're part of the working picture or they're not. And right now, it looks like two different answers are being pushed at once. Either the York family's close link to Andrew's situation means they need to be kept at a distance, or it doesn't. It can't be both at the same time, and yet that's exactly what these competing messages are trying to suggest.
And I obviously will come to the bizarre Meghan video post, but you contrast that with the total isolation of the two prisoners of Montecito, and specifically their isolation from the British royal family.
Yes, and you think about it as well, Dan, when it comes to Charles and Louis, we've always seen that they've had this special bond.
You've got Easter exclusion, widely seen as coming from William's camp, and then an Ascot invitation reportedly coming from Buckingham Palace. That's not just mixed messaging, that's the public surface of a real disagreement about where the institution is heading. This is the tension Tom Sykes points to, and it's not subtle anymore. It's shaping up as an active fault line between the King and the Prince of Wales, playing out in real time through who appears where and who doesn't. Charles is coming at this from a family-first angle. He's instinctively protective, wanting to preserve some sense of unity. To him, Beatrice and Eugenie are his nieces, not extensions of their father's controversies. He's had a genuine bond with them for years, and he's not ready to cut that off. But William is looking at the bigger institutional picture, and his calculation is colder, more strategic. Based on public opinion and polling, he sees the York family's connection to Andrew as a reputational risk the monarchy simply can't afford to carry. Two perspectives, two priorities, and right now, they're pulling in different directions in a very visible way. And he's not just talking about it, he's using real leverage to back it up. His attendance has become a tool, a line in the sand. If William doesn't show up when the York family is present, that absence speaks loudly, and it shapes the entire event. Because here's the reality. William's presence is what drives positive headlines, public interest, and that sense of stability the institution relies on. So when he draws that boundary, Charles is forced into a tough call. Who takes priority? At Easter, that decision clearly leaned in William's favor. The York family was out, and the optics were tightly controlled. But then comes the Ascot invitation, and suddenly it looks like Charles isn't ready to lock that decision in for good. And that's where the problem hits. This kind of back and forth creates confusion, and confusion chips away at credibility. Are Beatrice and Eugenie in the fold, or not? Is the York family being moved toward long-term distance, or just kept on a short leash for now? No one's giving a straight answer. And that silence is becoming part of the story. Because at a bigger level, it reflects a criticism that's been building around Charles's reign. When it comes to tough institutional calls, especially around Harry and Andrew, there's a sense that decisions are delayed, softened, or left hanging. He's been handling things through ambiguity and delay instead of laying down clear direction. And right now, the York family situation is the clearest example of that style in action. Or maybe the lack of it. It's messy, it's unclear, and it leaves too much open to interpretation. William, on the other hand, is moving very differently. His approach is sharp, consistent, and enforced, even when it creates tension with his own father. On the York family, his stance hasn't shifted at all, and everyone around the institution knows exactly where he stands. The same goes for his position on any potential Sussex reconciliation, the trust gap, the conditions for rebuilding it, the idea that private promises need to be kept before any public reset happens. He's been clear about all of it. No mixed signals, no soft edges, just a firm line that doesn't move. And that's the key difference. He's making the hard calls that Charles has been hesitant to lock in. That's why those Easter front pages mattered so much. They reflected William's version of the monarchy, not because he staged anything, but because the outcome naturally lined up with his vision. A united Wales family front and a noticeable York absence created a powerful image, one that signals a monarchy focused on the future, with defined boundaries about who is in and who is out.
This life, she just wanted to utilize it to catapult herself, what she thought would be, into greater stardom. The British royal family is warm, they embrace each other, they are family, they obviously have some blended families, and I think that's beautiful to see.
But now, things get tricky again. Charles will be at Ascot, and the York princesses are expected to be there too, which puts William in a tight spot, because he's already made his position crystal clear. So the question now is unavoidable. Does that stance apply to Ascot as well? Or does Ascot suddenly become an exception to the rule? Either way, the next move is going to say a lot, and people will be watching closely. The tension between these two royal households isn't going anywhere. It keeps showing up in one key way: who's in the picture and who's left out. That's where the real story is being told again and again. And that Easter image? 5 figures walking toward St. George's Chapel. That's the shot that defines this entire moment. It's clean, it's focused, and it sends a powerful message about the future of the monarchy. Whatever complications are swirling behind the scenes, that image makes the future look steady, controlled, and secure. On the other side, the Montecito Easter content just doesn't land the same way. The back of a child's head, a soft toy, quick glimpses. It feels fleeting, like it's designed for the moment rather than built to last. It grabs attention for a second, sure, but it doesn't carry weight, and that's the difference. The Windsor image sticks. It's the one people remember, the one that shapes the narrative of Easter 2026. The Montecito posts, they fade fast in comparison, so when you zoom out, the bigger picture becomes clear. William's vision is visible and gaining ground. Charles's management style looks uneven, creating tension instead of clarity. The York family is stuck in the middle, caught between two directions with no firm answer. And over in Montecito, it's still those partial glimpses, those carefully controlled angles, playing out on Instagram, while Harry continues speaking out against social media from platforms far away. The contrast is sharp, and it practically writes the story on its own. But looking closer at that Montecito Easter content, the details start to reveal even more about where the Sussex social media strategy really stands right now. And it goes even further than the obvious tension around Harry's anti-social media stance. Meghan's return to Instagram came with serious hype, built up like a major moment. It was framed as the Duchess stepping back into the spotlight, reconnecting directly with her audience, and creating that personal, authentic content that lifestyle brands depend on. From the Sussex side, the expectation was clear. This move was supposed to spark momentum, build energy, and pull people in fast. It was meant to feel like a fresh start with real impact. But that surge? It hasn't really shown up the way many expected. The content is there, the platform is active, but the wave of momentum that was supposed to follow just hasn't fully landed. The follower count isn't climbing, it's slipping. And the engagement? It's not hitting the level you'd expect for an account that's supposed to support a serious commercial strategy. That gap between audience size and actual response is hard to ignore, especially when you look at the kind of content being posted. The cheese board email, the flower arrangement tutorial that doesn't really teach anything, and now the Easter clips with the back of a child's head. It's all been met with a mix of confusion and frustration from people watching closely. It's not landing the way it was likely intended. And that Lily video? It sparked a very specific reaction.
But I'm not showing you. Honestly, I think for most people that is more aggravating than anything else. Celebrities are able to have children and have social medias where their children aren't a part of it. And Meghan Markle, her social media strategy is all over the place. I mean, sometimes I think she says she wants it to be like her personal Instagram, but it's like public, but it's like it doesn't work that.
A lot of commentators have described it as flat, quiet in a way that doesn't feel warm, more like something's missing than something's being shared. Look at what's actually shown. A child filmed from behind, holding a soft toy, standing alone in what looks like a large private outdoor space. No other kids, no cousins, no friends, no sense of interaction. Just one child in a wide, empty setting. This is supposed to represent freedom, right? The post-royal life, the California ease, the idea of a more authentic childhood away from structure and expectation. That's the image being presented. But the way it comes across to some viewers feels different. Instead of lively or connected, it can feel quiet in a way that raises questions, especially when compared to the Wales children, who are often seen out at events, engaging with people, building friendships, and moving within a visible community. That contrast doesn't go unnoticed, and it adds another layer to how both versions of royal life are being perceived right now. George, Charlotte, and Louis aren't freer than Archie and Lily in the sense of having less security or fewer rules, but they are plugged into a social world that keeps them connected. They're around other kids, part of school life, moving through the normal rhythms that shape how children grow and interact. That kind of environment matters, and it shows. So the real question becomes, does the Montecito version of childhood offer the same kind of connection? Because the content itself raises doubts. A child alone with a stuffed toy, standing in a huge private space. That's a very specific image of a very specific lifestyle. And it doesn't quite match the warm, lively picture that was likely meant to come across. Now, the skiing content shifts the tone. It's more active, more upbeat, and Harry is right there in the frame. It feels closer to a classic family moment. But even then, the questions don't go away. That separate photo of Harry skiing happily with Eugenie, it lingers. And the lack of any clear sign that Meghan was actually on the trip, that stands out too. So you've got content presenting a full family holiday.
It's beautiful grounds, but it just seems like their whole life is pretty empty. And their children, I mean, I'm sure they go to school, I'm sure they have friends, but there was, I think, some weird mention from Meghan how like they almost kind of had to like force people to come over to their house and play with their kids, because I think Meghan Markle is quite a weird person, and I think.
But the visible pieces don't completely line up in a straightforward way. And this isn't the first time people have raised eyebrows at how things are presented. The Sussex communications style has often been described as showing things as they're meant to look, not necessarily as they fully are. From past stories like the Africa narrative to the Sandringham reconciliation that never quite materialized, there's a pattern people keep pointing back to, and it's shaping how this latest content is being read. The Netflix deal was framed as some big creative partnership, but from the start, it looked a lot more like a tightly managed commercial setup. And now, this Easter skiing content feels like it's sliding into that same pattern. Another moment where what's being presented doesn't fully line up with what people can actually see. Now shift the focus, because the Beatrice and Eugenie situation hits differently when you look at it on a human level, not just as palace strategy. These are grown women with their own lives, marriages, careers, children, their own identities separate from everything else. And by all available accounts, they've kept their distance from Andrew's situation. They haven't been seen publicly supporting him in any visible way, and there's no clear sign tying them to the behavior that caused all the fallout.
Firstly, Emily Ferguson revealed that Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, was expected to attend the Easter Sunday service, but she wasn't there, just said that she was under the weather, while apparently Lady Louise, her and Prince Edward's daughter, was busy with her studies and was never going to be there. So that is a standard absence, I think we can say.
That matters, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. But despite that, they're still being handled like extensions of their parents' issues rather than individuals with their own standing. And that's where things get complicated fast. William's position, refusing to attend events where York family members are present, doesn't draw a line between Andrew's actions and his daughter's lives. It treats the entire family as one unit for the sake of managing risk and perception. From a strategic angle, you can see the logic. But on a human level, it's a lot messier than that, and it raises questions that don't have easy answers. Charles's instinct is to protect them, to keep them included, to invite them to Ascot and hold their place within the family. It comes from a more human, more forgiving view of their situation. They didn't choose their parents, and they can't rewrite what Andrew did. And before everything around Andrew fully came to light, their own track records were solid. They showed up, carried out their roles, and did it with consistency and a sense of duty that didn't go unnoticed. So this clash between William's harder line and Charles's more protective stance isn't just about control or power. It's deeper than that. It's a real disagreement about where accountability should begin and end, and whether children should carry the weight of their parents' actions. And here's the reality. There's no clean, easy answer to that. That's why the mixed signals around Easter and Ascot feel so messy, because they reflect a problem that doesn't have a simple fix. But what is clear is that the current situation, these back-and-forth decisions, the conflicting briefings, the lack of one clear voice, isn't helping anyone. Beatrice and Eugenie are left in a strange position, where they can't even plan their public roles with confidence. One week they seem included, the next, they're out of the picture. It's unstable, and it shows. And for the institution itself, this kind of inconsistency chips away at credibility. Because if the messaging coming from inside the palace doesn't line up, it becomes a lot harder to project the kind of clarity and stability that public trust depends on. And if this keeps playing out through leaks and competing briefings, Charles and William are going to struggle to maintain the kind of working relationship a smooth transition actually depends on. This isn't something that can stay unresolved forever. At some point, a clear call has to be made, and it has to be communicated properly. Either Beatrice and Eugenie are moved toward permanent distance, similar to how Andrew has been handled, with a firm explanation of why and what their future looks like. Or they stay in the family fold with clear conditions and expectations attached. Right now, it's neither one nor the other, and that's the problem. You've got Easter exclusion reportedly coming from one side and an Ascot invitation coming from another. That's not a strategy, that's mixed messaging playing out in public. And that kind of back and forth doesn't just look messy, it actively damages the institution in a way a firm decision in either direction wouldn't.
And that's why what we have seen is William, and I've reported on this obviously extensively, taking control, but it was a really obvious example of that at the weekend. And for Charles's PR team, not a great day, you could argue, because of course those front pages, which I showed you earlier in the segment, completely dominated by William and Catherine.
Looking at the bigger picture, William is coming across as the more decisive institutional operator here. His approach is clearer, more consistent, and easier for the public to understand, even if it creates tension behind the scenes. His moves have come across as more strategically tight, more thought through, and more consistent than his father's. When his messaging does come through official channels, it's sharper, more direct, and clearly aimed at a specific outcome. There's a sense of purpose behind it that's hard to miss. And his vision for the monarchy? It's leaner, more controlled, more focused on the Wales family as the clear public core. It cuts away the complications and centers the institution around a smaller, more stable group. That's the model he's pushing. Charles, on the other hand, seems more inclined to keep a broader family circle intact, even when some connections bring complications with them. It's a more traditional, more inclusive instinct, but it doesn't always line up neatly with the current pressures. But here's the catch. Coherence doesn't automatically mean it's the right long-term move. William's hard line on the York family might look strong now, but it could get harder to sustain over time than it seems. Take Ascot, for example. It's a major public event, and the York princesses have been regulars there for years. If they suddenly don't appear, that absence won't go unnoticed. It'll become the story. And if the headlines shift from the event itself to internal conflict, then enforcing that line at Ascot starts to look less like strength and more like a complication. Still, when it comes to Easter, those front pages, they belong to William's vision, no question. But the next few months are going to put all of this to the test, because it's one thing to project a clean, controlled image. It's another to hold that line when real pressure starts pushing back. Charles's instinct to include, the York family's long-standing presence at key events, and the public's natural sympathy for people seen as carrying the weight of someone else's actions, all of that is still in play. Those Easter front pages told a powerful story: stability, continuity, a future that looks locked in. But what comes next will show whether that story actually holds up, or if it starts to crack under the surface tensions that haven't gone anywhere. Because behind every polished royal moment, there are still unresolved issues moving quietly in the background. And right now, those issues are very real, very active, and not fully settled. The Easter images matter. They're strong, they're symbolic, and they give a clear glimpse of what the monarchy's future could look like. William, Catherine, and their 3 children walking towards St. George's Chapel. That's not just a photo, it's a statement. But a single moment, no matter how powerful, isn't enough to carry the future on its own.
Choreographed display of royal unity, hierarchy, and legitimacy. To pre-announce that you will be including the York princesses, there is a clear statement that Charles sees them as still within the fold. So what you are seeing here today is the acting out of the conflict of 2 competing courts. On one side, Charles, conciliatory, familial, inclined to preserve a sense of unity above all. On the other, William.
What really matters now are the decisions still hanging in the air. The York family situation, the ongoing shadow of Andrew, the unresolved Sussex dynamic, and the quiet but growing gap between 2 royal households with different visions, all of it still needs to be addressed. Because in the end, the future of the institution won't be decided by one perfect image. It'll be shaped by the choices that come after it. Easter Sunday gave a clear glimpse of the destination, but the road to get there is still complicated. And that contrast, the back of a child's head in Montecito set against the warmth and structure of Windsor, sums up where both stories stand right now better than anything else this week. But there's another layer to all of this, and it pulls everything together. It raises a bigger question. What exactly has Charles's reign been so far, and what is it turning into as these pressures keep building? Because the reality is, Charles stepped into the role under circumstances no one would have chosen. The loss of his mother after a 70-year reign wasn't just personal. It placed immediate weight on him to steady an institution that couldn't afford to wobble. And he had to do it in an already complicated environment. The Sussex departure was still fresh, the Andrew situation was unresolved, and wider questions about the monarchy's relevance in the modern world were getting louder. To his credit, he took on the role with clear intent and a sense of duty. Those early months carried real public goodwill, and there was a feeling that he could guide the institution through a sensitive transition. But then, everything shifted. The cancer diagnosis didn't just affect him personally, it changed the entire rhythm of the reign. It altered timelines, expectations, and the balance between Charles and William in ways neither of them had planned. And suddenly, what was supposed to be a steady transition started to feel a lot more uncertain, with new pressures building faster than the system was ready for. A king dealing with a serious illness isn't in a position to deliver the kind of sharp, consistent, long-term leadership these challenges demand. That's just the reality of it, no matter how committed he is. And for the Prince of Wales, watching that unfold in real time creates a tough calculation.
Do you think it comes in large part from a lack of clear leadership by Charles at the top? And William is attempting to the best he can to try to right the royal ship because Charles is he's just withering. He just doesn't know quite what to do. I don't think this is the reign he envisioned for himself, and he just can't seem to adjust. William is attempting to do what he can, but
how far does he push his own vision? And how much does he step back out of respect for his father? That balance isn't simple, and it's playing out in public whether anyone admits it or not. That's how you end up with the split-screen Easter moment. 2 royal households, 2 different approaches, 2 visions moving side by side, but not fully aligned. And when the front pages hit, one of those visions clearly took the lead. Charles's connection to the York family says something real about who he is. He values loyalty, family ties, and long-standing relationships, and he doesn't find it easy to cut people off, even when the institutional pressure is pointing that way. That instinct makes him relatable on a human level. But when it comes to leading a centuries-old institution under pressure, it also makes things more complicated because preservation and discipline don't always sit comfortably together. The Andrew situation and the years where stronger action wasn't taken still hangs over everything. Moments like that widely discussed hand-kissing at Ascot, which many saw as a serious lapse in judgment, didn't just pass by unnoticed, they stuck, and they shaped how people see Charles's leadership. What's happening with the York princesses at Easter feels like a smaller echo of that same pattern. A hesitation to draw a firm line, even when the pressure to do so is clearly there. William's approach cuts in the opposite direction. It's tougher, more focused on the long-term health of the institution, and less influenced by personal ties when decisions have to be made. He's looking at the bigger picture, even when it means making uncomfortable calls. That makes him, based on what we can name, a more decisive institutional operator. But that same edge comes with trade-offs. Because when it comes to people on the margins, the Yorks, the Sussexes, anyone who complicates the narrative, his approach can feel less forgiving, less flexible, and maybe harder to sustain over time. For his strategy to actually work, it needs consistency and full backing. You can't draw a hard line at Easter and then blur it at the next big event. If the York family is out, they have to stay out, at Ascot and beyond. And that only works if the entire institution, especially Charles, is aligned behind it. But that Ascot briefing coming out of Buckingham Palace instead of Kensington? That signals something important. Charles isn't fully backing that hard line, and that's where the tension really starts to show. And without that full support, the line becomes harder and harder to hold. What the institution actually needs, what would cut through all this noise, is a real, direct conversation between Charles and William that leads to one shared position, not two competing versions being quietly fed to different journalists. Right now, it feels like two separate strategies are running at the same time, and they keep colliding in public. What's missing is a single, clear stance on where the York family stands, communicated once, cleanly, and backed by everyone at the top. Whether that conversation is even happening behind the scenes isn't clear, and even if it is, there's no guarantee it leads to agreement, because the difference in how Charles and William see this issue runs deep. But what is clear is this: the current setup isn't working. The confusion, the mixed signals, the back and forth between Easter exclusion and Ascot inclusion, it's creating a kind of institutional fog that helps no one. Even moments that should land cleanly, like those strong Easter front pages, end up surrounded by unresolved questions that pull focus away from the message. And then there's Montecito. The partial glimpses, the carefully teased reveals, the skiing clip that raises as many questions as it answers. It all feels like an attempt to step into the same narrative space using a completely different playbook. But here's the reality. Those tools, social media drops, controlled angles, selective moments, they don't carry the same weight as a full royal image coming out of Windsor. They can grab attention for a second, sure, but they were never going to overpower the kind of presence and symbolism that comes from the monarchy's core stage. But the attempt itself says a lot. It shows where the Sussex operation believes it needs to be, right in the middle of the conversation, visible in the coverage, positioned alongside the Wales family, even if the impact isn't the same. And that effort isn't stopping anytime soon. The Easter posts are just one piece. More content will follow, more moments will be pushed out, each one aiming to stay in the public eye and keep the narrative moving. There are already more chapters coming. The Australia retreat will bring its own wave of attention, the court verdict will land and shift the spotlight again, and through all of it, the institution will keep juggling the same pressures. Charles's instinct to include, William's firmer line, the York family's unclear position, and the Sussex operation continuing to push for relevance. But Easter Sunday made one thing stand out clearly. The Windsor story, the image of the monarchy's future looking steady, visible, and secure, came through stronger than everything surrounding it. The front pages backed it up, the public reaction reinforced it, and even the contrast with Montecito in its own quiet way highlighted it further. Because when the competing narrative is built on partial glimpses and controlled fragments, it struggles to match the clarity and weight of a fully formed public moment. And that's the real takeaway. The destination shown in those Windsor images doesn't feel distant. It feels closer than it might have seemed, even with all the noise still swirling around it. The institution is moving through a complicated moment, no doubt about it. But the image it delivered on Easter Sunday? That was the right one. And the people in that frame are exactly the ones positioned to carry it forward. That's the signal that cuts through everything else. The internal tensions, the competing briefings, the unanswered questions around skiing clips. All of that starts to look like background noise when set against a clear, focused image that actually lands. For the first time in a while, the direction feels visible. And more importantly, it feels intentional. Now the real test begins. Watch what William builds in the months ahead, because that's where this story either strengthens or starts to slip. Watch how the Edelman appointment reshapes the Wales family's communication style, how the messaging sharpens, how the public image evolves. And most importantly, watch whether the clarity seen on Easter Sunday holds steady or starts to crack under the weight of everything still unresolved. Because the destination is there, plain to see. But the path to get there? Still being worked out in real time, and that's where things can either come together or fall apart fast.